Okay, this is Ben Cohen reporting for thedailybanter.com, and we're here with David Barsamian. We're talking about his book, Targeting Iran, and what we say goes. Okay, David, the overriding theme of your book, Targeting Iran, is that the Bush administration is aggressively pushing for a confrontation with Iran. How close are we to war?
Very close. The United States has deployed 3 aircraft carrier battle groups right off the Iranian coast. And when I say an aircraft carrier battle group, that doesn't just mean an aircraft carrier. It's cruisers, destroyers, minesweepers, submarines, battalions of Marine Corps troops, helicopter gunships, F-16s, vast armada. Are they just sitting there and passing the time in the Persian Gulf? I think they intend to launch an attack on Iran, a bombing raid. Regime change is the goal. Iran is a charter member of the Axis of Evil. Bush put them on that list in January of 2002. And essentially, the United States government has never accepted the Islamic Revolution of 1979. It has always sought to reverse it or overthrow it, and now formally calling for regime change.
In your book, you pay particular attention to the domestic political situation in Iran. To what extent would you say they're responsible for the escalating conflict with the US?
Very little. Every Iranian that I spoke to knows the score. I mean, they're not stupid people. They know what the capacity of the United States military is, and they know what their capacity is. There's no comparison. The United States spends $750 billion on weapons. Iran spends $5 billion. That's the expenditure of 1 week of the U.S. in Iraq, or 2 B-2 bombers, if you will. Iranians, actually, everyone I met, want to reestablish diplomatic relations with the United States, which were severed in 1979, 1980. They would like to talk. They're surrounded by U.S. troops. They can look at a map and see what the situation is. There's U.S. militaries in Iraq, U.S. militaries in Afghanistan, the U.S. Navy is in the Persian Gulf, and there are U.S. Air Force bases north of Iran in Central Asia. So the military situation does not exactly favor the Iranians, and they understand this. They're not threatening the United States. Number one, it's the United States that's threatening Iran. Iran has not attacked a country in 250 years.
I mean, there were attempts by the Iranian government to talk with the United States a couple of years ago, and they were rebuffed by the US, if I'm right in saying that.
Yes, there were 2 very significant overtures made by Tehran. And this was during the presidency of Mohammad Khatami, when the U.S. decided to overthrow the Taliban in Afghanistan. Iran and the Taliban almost went to war in the late 1990s. There's a very deep divide between Iran, which is largely a Shia country, and the Taliban, which is an extreme Salafist, Wahhabi, puritanical Islamic fundamentalist formation that regard Shias as heretics, as non-Muslims. So Iran helped the United States in overthrowing the Taliban. It was in their interests as well. They were able to supply the United States with very critical intelligence, because Iran has many allies inside of Afghanistan. Half the population of Afghanistan speaks Farsi, the national language of Iran. There are very close civilizational ties between Iran and Afghanistan, and Iran and Iraq as well. And so Iran played a great role in the overthrow of the Taliban. Iran also was instrumental in seating Hamid Karzai, the current president of Afghanistan, in Bonn, Germany, in December of 2001. There was a conference held of all the Afghan leaders. It's called Shura, like a Congress. And they were trying to select the president, someone to lead the country. And a number of the tribal warlords and some of these, powerful local political leaders were dead set against Karzai. They saw him as an outsider, as a U.S. puppet, that someone who was not connected to the Afghan people, who was not in Afghanistan for many years. And what Iran did was literally, twist the arms of their allies in Bonn, their Afghan allies, and Karzai was seated. Now, what was their payoff for that? Within weeks, Iran is listed as an axis of evil state, coupling Iran with its hated adversary, Iraq, Saddam Hussein's Iraq. This was a huge humiliation for the Iranians. They thought, well, look, we did the Americans right. We did them 2 good turns. Maybe things will start to warm up. Now, a couple of years after that, there is again an overture made to Washington, conveyed by the Swiss ambassador. There's no diplomatic relations between Iran and the United States, but the Swiss embassy in Tehran represents U.S. interests. And so the Iranian government, again under Mohammad Khatami, made what is called a grand bargain proposal. Reestablish diplomatic relations, talk about border issues, talk about compensation, talk about Hezbollah, talk about Hamas, all the issues to be on the table. Now, you would think that at the very least, in terms of international diplomacy, what the United States would have done would have been, well, we received your offer, it looks very interesting, we'll need some time to study it, and we'll get back to you, or thanks, we got your proposal, we reviewed it, nothing there that interests us very much. Have a nice day. Not even that. In fact, the Swiss ambassador was publicly reprimanded by the State Department for being a dupe of the Iranians. He was being manipulated by them. So, and there was never any formal reply to the Iranian offer. Now, when I was in Iran in 2007, this year, I met, let me just call them hardliners. That is, people who support the Islamic regime, who think the Islamic Republic is the model and it's doing a really good job. So I talked to a number of them, and a composite answer I got from them was that we warned the then President Khatami to stay away from the Americans. Nothing good will come from it. They'll stab you in the back. They'll shake hands with you with one hand, and with the other hand, they'll give you a dagger in the back.
Which is what they did.
So they feel vindicated. Yeah, they were kind of like gloating. They said, "See, we told you so. You can't work with these people. They want to destroy Iran. They want to humiliate our country." So this composite hardliner opinion kind of encompassed that particular view, that we're vindicated. We told Khatami, don't deal with the Americans. You're just going to get screwed up. You're going to get humiliated. And that's exactly what happened. So they felt, very virtuous and very righteous about what happened.
Domestically speaking, there seems to be very little support for war amongst the population. But that's not reflected by kind of American politicians. Why do you think that is?
Because there's an enormous gap between public opinion and public policy. The government essentially does not represent the people. It does rhetorically, but in fact it represents the oil corporations and the military-industrial complex, as Eisenhower described it in his farewell address of January 17th, 1961. The government is very much enthralled to these large corporations like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Raytheon and General Electric and General Dynamics and Honeywell and Sikorsky and the Carlyle Group and on and on. They are making money hand over fist, particularly in a time of war when new weapons are required, old weapons are replaced. So the profits that are being generated right now are at absolute record levels. This is also true of the oil corporations. In 2005, ExxonMobil set the record for greatest profits in the history of any corporation in capitalist history. The figure was something like 36 billion. In 2006, the number jumped to 40 billion. This is net. This is take home. I know it's slightly less than you probably earn, but Indeed, a huge amount. Now this year, it's going to go way off the charts. I mean, we already have the figures from the first 2 quarters. They're projected to make maybe between $50 and $60 billion net profit.